Hello everyone and welcome to a book review for Anne of Green Gables. This is book number 1 in a series. I don't remember how long the series is. I do know there's also a prequel which was not written by L.M. Montgomery. So the rest of the series was, but the prequel is not. And if I remember seeing right, I think the prequel author was authorized by relatives of L.M. Montgomery to write that book, if I remember seeing that correctly. So this is, I'm going to say middle grade or YA, probably more middle grade due to the age of the character most of the time. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. It was, Anne of Green Gables was originally published in 1908, so it is over 100 years old. I have seen an adaptation for this, and the one that I saw that I like that always comes to my mind is the one from the mid 80s, but from the 80s, so from the 1980s. So this one we're following an orphan girl. Anne is the name of the child, and I believe she's 11 in this. So anyway, we start out following Mrs. Rachel, and I believe it's her husband, Miss Rachel Lindy, and what is his name? Mr. Lindy, but I can't remember his name. Oh no, it's Marilla. Excuse me, Marilla is the lady that adopts Anne, and I believe it's her husband, Matthew Cuthbert. So what has happened is they are at an age in their life where they need a little bit more help with their property, with their land, and things like that. And they decide they're going to adopt a boy. So they send word to an adoption agency. This does take place in Canada, in Nova Scotia, I believe, or around Nova Scotia. So they send word to the adoption agency saying they want to adopt a boy so that they can raise him up to be a help around the home, or especially the property with the animals and things like that. So the day arrives where they need to pick up the child. Mr. Cuthbert, Matthew, why Howard coming into my mind? Matthew Cuthbert goes to the train station to pick up this boy that they are expecting. However, the train is gone. No one is around except for the ticket agent and a little girl. Come to find out, there's some kind of miscommunication somewhere, and the child for them to adopt turns out to be Anne, obviously a girl, instead of the boy that they were expecting. Marilla is not happy about this. On the way home, Matthew becomes attached to her, does not want to send Anne back, wants to keep Anne. Marilla is like, nope, we're sending her back. And her thinking kind of goes 100 miles a minute type of a situation. It was hard for me to follow along at times. She would be starting out with how certain flowers look, and then how it would be nice to be here, and oh, isn't this nice? And then, oh, what about this? And just from A to F to G to Z to B, it was all over the place. So that was a little frustrating, but that was, for me personally, it was hard to keep up. I actually did a little Google search, and there is some suspicion that if Anne were living today, she would be diagnosed with ADHD. So obviously back then, probably a lot of things went undiagnosed, especially in girls and women. So, but that was interesting. So anyway, Marilla takes Anne, it's been a day, she takes Anne to this lady who was over the whole adoption thing, and they're talking about possibly, making things right, having to send Anne back or send Anne over to this other lady who's looking to adopt someone to help with her kids. And Marilla's heart kind of breaks a little bit and can't imagine sending Anne to live with this other lady. So they do decide to keep Anne. And Anne doesn't know how to pray. She speaks her mind, and so Marilla has a task of teaching her, and it does say in this how she's got to teach this child how to pray, how to be grateful, how to do all this other stuff, and things like that. And you see their connection grow. And so it's just her becoming adopted, growing to love Marilla and Matthew, she calls it a bosom friend or a bosom sister or something like that. Anne's always wanted one. It's been her dream to have a bosom sister or a bosom friend. She does meet someone that lives a little ways down the way. There are some things that happen. She is teased for having red hair. Other things happen that she gets blamed for, which in certain situations she doesn't know what she did was wrong, or she was led to believe that she did nothing wrong when the mistake was really someone else's, if that makes sense. So, like for instance, there's this one thing involving alcohol. She doesn't realize she's handling alcohol, and things go from there. So, a couple of things to be aware of. You have sick children in this, so if seeing children who are sick and on the verge of dying, especially in the early 1900s, where it was more common for a child who is sick to die shortly thereafter. So that is talked about. Racism is a part of this, again, early 1900s, so you do have the racism. You have loss of a loved one, of a partner, of a parental figure, things like that. So you do deal with grief on this. A couple of other things to be aware of. You have the words queer comes up and gay. Now, in this particular case, it is not as we use those words today. Queer is used as odd, strange, something like that. And gay is used in the terms of happy, joy, joyful. So like having a gay old time is a phrase that I've heard in songs and stuff from older, years and years ago. So just be aware of that. Those words will pop up. It does not mean there's LGBT in this, okay? And there is not. If there is, it's not mentioned or brought up at all. So Anne wants to become a teacher, and so there's a lot of competition with school. She wants to be the best in her class, not only the best girl, but beat out the boys and things like that. And you do see how much Anne holds grudges too. So religion is a big part of this book, and that's the only other thing that I have to tell you about. If you don't want anything to do with religion, then you may want to skip this. Especially where this was in the 1900s, in the early 1900s, I have seen that a lot of the classics, religion and talk of God in a religious sense is much more common than it is today. So, and that is very much the case here. Anytime God comes up, it is done in a religious tone. So that's really it. Aside from that, and just the mention, like I said, of the words queer and gay being used differently than what they are used as today, that's it. There's no F-bombs, there's no other swearing in this. And I thought it was a sweet book. I did get the prequel, so I will be reading at some point the prequel before I continue on with this series. But I did enjoy this. Let me know. Have you read Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery? If you have not, have you seen any of the adaptations, and which adaptation is your favorite? Mine is the one from the 80s, and that's the only one that comes to my mind. I don't think I've seen any of the others, and if they have come on, I've switched out of it because I didn't care for the scenery or the acting or something as much as I did from the 80s. So yeah. Anyway, so those are my thoughts, and that is one thing that I learned. I didn't know watching. I thought Anne of Green Gables took place in America, but no, it is actually in Canada, so I did find that interesting. There's also a little bit of talk of patriotism and being proud to be in Canada, and you start to see some of the discord of people in the early 1900s starting to see the rift between political parties like the right and the left, and how they feel about that widening gap between the political parties. So that was a little bit in here as well. So let me know your thoughts on this. Have you read it? Are you interested in reading it? Talk to me in the comment section below. And until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book. And I'll talk to you later.